You are watching Web of Faith 2.1 and a half, presented by Father John Trujillo and Father Kenneth Briganti. We are happy you will be joining us. And now, without further ado, Father Kenneth Briganti and Father John Trujillo.
Hello and welcome to another special edition of Web of Faith. This one's called Web of Faith 2.1 and a half, which is a little bit different than our regular TV show that you can find on EWTN Web of Faith 2.0, which is on Saturdays at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But since we're all quarantined here, we thought we'd bring this show weekly or daily to you, Monday through Fridays, and so that we entertain your questions, and you'll see the email address. So please write them in. We have a bunch of questions that were written in yesterday, and we're going to be answering them today. And so we look forward to seeing what you have on your mind about theology, doctrine, liturgy, saints, morality, anything that has to do with the church, even church history. We'd be happy to answer them for you on this show. I am joined here by my esteemed colleague, Father John Trujillo.
Yes, I'm Father John Trujillo, Diocese of Harrisburg, and also Director of Pastoral Formation at Mount St. Mary's Seminary in Emmitsburg, Maryland.
And so again, we welcome here to St. Mary Magdalene de Pazzi. My name is Father Ken Briganti, pastor here, for those who are not parishioners and tuning in, because I think we're even putting this up on YouTube now. So
all around the world now.
So we're going to be, we'll be like EWTN. So this is their little satellite studio here in Flemington, New Jersey.
We're a small affiliate.
That's right. Now, this is Holy Week, so tomorrow we thought, Father Trujillo and I thought we'd do a special edition, so we're really not going to probably answer your questions tomorrow. We're going to talk about the Sacred Triduum, and we're going to talk about Easter traditions and customs around the world, how they're celebrated in the half-hour show. And that'll probably will air then shortly after that. So it'll be kind of a nice way to prepare for Easter. Read an article, how to celebrate Easter at home, since most of the churches will still be under quarantine and closed. So it'll be a good way to see what you can do at home and what has been done in ethnic roots and things of that nature. And it's kind of a nice, fun thing to do. So we have a question here for you, Father Trujillo.
Oh, I'm ready.
And it says, Dear Father Trujillo, thank you for all you do in bringing God's word to the people, and also for working among seminarians. How edifying it must be for you. My question is this: how does one become an altar server? How old or young can you be? Peter.
Well, Peter, you need to ask your pastor, because every parish has a different age limit. When I was a pastor for 16 years, because we were so small, we had 150 families. We let as young as third graders serve Mass. And
that was always fun, especially when they were holding the book. You thought they were going to tip over like this.
Whoa! The one kid could barely carry the processional cross, almost
that went this way too,
out all over the place. But in most parishes, it's a little bit older, anywhere from 4th to 6th grade, and then all the way up to high school. And I know here, Father Briganti has a nice classification. He's got high school servers and also kids who are in grade school. And depending on your diocese, your bishop, and your pastor, you may have altar girls, and which most parishes do. Some dioceses, the bishop says not. And Father Briganti and I were altar boys. That was it. It was just altar boys. It was seen as a nice introduction to maybe vocation. I think that's where both of us entertain ideas about becoming a priest. But in most parishes, it's open to boys and girls. And to be an altar server, you need to obviously sign up, get training. And, it may be intimidating your first couple times around because there's so much to do. I remember when I was an altar boy, the very first time I dropped the cruet on Monsignor's foot.
Oh.
And
I rang the bell 5 times. You were supposed to not only ring it 4. So these things happen.
He said, I don't know if I would have preferred my foot to be broken or to crack the marble. And we had big teams back then. I remember we had 6, 7, 8 kids, and you rotated, and your parents, obviously the whole family would go to Mass. And I have 3 younger brothers. At one point, all of us were serving, and to make it easier, they used to assign us all together, which was not a pleasant thing to have you and your brothers all together. But today, it's a little bit different. You still have a schedule, and you report early so that you can prepare. Because it's not just that you function, you're also there to help edify the people. That's why the altar servers need to be well groomed, well behaved, and well practiced. Because it's not just a functional thing. There's also an aesthetic value to it.
I'm a stickler on that too. I said because you should wear shoes. Altar servers should wear shoes, not sneakers. Sneakers are for play or what have you. But you're in the church, so you need to wear shoes and some dress clothes underneath your altar server outfit. Younger ones from 8th grade under are wearing what they call an alb type of vesture, and then high school boys, that's 9th through 12th. We even have a couple of college kids too. They wear a cassock and surplice, and then the high school girls wear this special white tunic with a blue scapular that goes over it, just to denote their high school age. And at the 10:30 Mass, we just have the high school boys. And when Father John says edifying, it's nothing more edifying. They look like seminarians when they come processing in, and we have them, the incense at the 4 different times at Mass. Consecration is one of them, the 2 candle bearers. And I think that's probably what we're going to miss during Holy Week is the beautiful ceremonies and how the altar servers added that dignity to the ceremonies, which along with the choir, which we'll miss too, is some of the beautiful traditions that we've had. And
in some parishes, it's also for older people. I have a lot of retired fellows. Again, at my former parish, we had the little people and we had old people. And the old people were retired. They were able to go to Mass every day. And in my diocese of Harrisburg, we also have this St. Michael's
that's a really great
guild, where it's for adult men who are specifically trained, but not exclusively, to serve Mass when the bishop comes to the parish to visit, and also special ceremonies at the cathedral when the seminaries are not available. And it's so wonderful to see these guys know what they're doing.
They'll serve 40 hours.
Yes.
And they came to my 25th anniversary, which I had here in New Jersey at Villa Walsh, the mother house of the Filippini sisters. And they came up and served that. It was beautiful. They have a special type of surplice with an insignia on it. And boy, they really know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah. And it lends a nice solemnity. And, of course, in the Eastern Church, they have servers as well. And they're very busy because there's a lot of things going on just before Divine Liturgy and the Latin Rite too.
Their vestures are a little bit different to servers. They're almost like
they wear the same color that the priest and deacon wears. So as opposed to our servers who will wear the cassock and surplice or just the white alb. But there's a lot to learn, but it's nothing intimidating. And again, as I said, it's a source of vocations. I'm convinced that a lot of even the seminarians that we have at the seminary today, not all of them, but a good portion, were altar servers at one point. And I think getting that close to the sacred sacraments, and especially the Holy Mass, I think is a nice attraction for them.
Yeah, and I think the rule for an older age altar server, as long as you put a mirror underneath and you see a stain coming out, we'll take you. Because unless you have a school, weekday Mass is kind of difficult getting servers. So we have all sorts of older men that will serve for us, and they'll even serve funerals, which is really nice. Because there's many times we go to a parish that they don't have servers for funerals, and that's also adds, well, first of all, practicality, but it also, holding the book or the holy water, what have you, the cross, but it also adds a little solemnity to the funeral too. So we've trained a whole bunch of older men to do that, and it's been a great help in our parish here. So great.
So when I was in Catholic grade school, you longed for to have the 11:40 Mass, because that meant you got out of class. So the 7 o'clock you didn't want because school started at 8:30. But if you got the 11:40 Mass, or if there was a funeral, not only did you get out of class, but you got a little something from the funeral director.
Right, they still do. If it's If there's a young server, the funeral directors will still give a little something.
Little
Or in weddings,
honorarium, yes.
and weddings too. Give a little honorarium. So.
Okay, well, we've got
Well,
one
Peter,
now.
thank you for that question.
Excellent question. Okay, here we have one for Father Briganti. Dear Father Briganti, love the show and love your parish, and particularly the masses that the three of you have been celebrating every day. My question is, what is the difference between a nun and a sister? This is from Bernice.
Well, Bernice, great question, because sometimes we use those terms interchangeable. We say, oh, the nuns, when we really mean sisters. Now, a nun is a cloistered woman who, what does that mean? They live in a monastery. They are not allowed out, so to speak, in the world, but rather they take the vow of stability. So they live behind what they call a grail, which is sort of like what they call the enclosure. It's a papal enclosure. So once they start, they have only special permission to leave, maybe going to the doctor or to the hospital, or what have you. Otherwise, they stay behind the enclosure. So those are technically nuns, and they take the vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience. And I would say the nuns have specific charisms, like some of them, in order to support their monastery. So we use a monastery in Philadelphia that makes our hosts that we use for Mass. And unfortunately, now with the quarantine, we have to cut back on our host order. So even the monasteries are going to be suffering a bit financially because they depend on that as their livelihood. Some other monasteries make cards, or they make vestments, or what have you. So like Saint Benedict, who said there's so many hours for work, so many hours for relaxation, so many hours for prayer. So it's in the work that they do, not only communal work to keep the monastery going, but also work to bring in some revenue. Some nuns make jams and things of that nature and sell them in their stores, cheeses, what have you. There are all sorts of ways of supporting each other, supporting. So the basic thing is they're enclosed, and that's what we call a nun. They, depending on the order or that they belong to, their habit will denote what community they belong to. So, for example, the Carmelite nuns wear pretty much a brown habit with a brown scapular, a white thing called a wimple there, and then a black veil. A cloistered Dominican nun wears a white habit, a white scapular, a white wimple, and a black veil. The cloistered Poor Clares, again, they wear brown, and they have a cord like the Franciscans, with poverty.
Which Mother Angelica was a
Mother Angelica was a Poor Clare, right? So these are three main types of enclosed nuns. Now, sisters are in the active apostolate, and we don't mean that the cloistered nuns are not active. I mean they're out in the world. Okay, so they also take vows of chastity, poverty, obedience. They could be religious orders, which means founded before the 13th or 14th century, or they could be religious communities or congregations, which are usually founded after the restoration of the church and the Counter-Reformation. And then also, a lot of them became popular in the 19th century. A lot of what they call congregations. They met a specific need, like immigrants coming to the United States. And so you had different ethnic groups having different nuns that were, or sisters, here I use the same term, to teach. So they too wore, up until 1965, a full habit like a cloistered nun. But now they're more modified, because they're more in the world. So, but they still have most of them still have a distinct, type of a habit to denote their tradition of their community. The religious teachers Filippini are kind of like different than the regular sisters who wear a veil. They wear a bonnet. Because that's the old
They're
habit.
not Mennonites.
The old habit was a big bonnet with a tassel. So, but they could look like them too,
Yeah.
Except they're Italian looking, So,
Italian Mennonites.
But anyways, they try to keep, that. There are some though of the congregations that were founded after, that don't wear a habit anymore. Unfortunately, those communities are pretty much dying out, as we see today. So the communities that are still pretty much, thriving of sisters are those that have a habit. They live a religious community life, and they pray together, and they have a defined apostolate. So like the Dominican sisters in Nashville are thriving. The Dominican sisters in Ann Arbor thriving. The Carmelite sisters of the Sacred Heart of Jesus of Mary, they're not cloistered, even though the word Carmelite, but they have Carmelite spirituality. They run hospitals and schools too. They're thriving. And so you see that that's where the girl wants something, they want to see something that why they were going to be giving up marriage or work in the business world and what have you. Now, they have apostolates, like, as I mentioned, they could be teaching sisters, they could be nursing sisters, running hospitals, running colleges, they could be in the social concerns, anything to do with social concerns, meaning for the poor and the works of charity of that nature. So their apostolates could be all around the board there, depending on the charism of their mother foundress.
You have sisters here.
It's Christian
in fact,
charity.
People watch on television.
Yeah. Little Sister Faustina, right? You could just see her veil and eyes at Mass, right?
And who does she belong to?
She belongs to the Sisters of Christian Charity, and they're a German foundation. Blessed Pauline von Mellenkreuz is mother foundress, and so they came over primarily in the 19th century from Germany to serve the German Americans, which were a big population here in the United States. Now they serve those communities. German communities have pretty much gone, so they serve the needs of whoever they're sent to. So we have them here. We had one that's was our director of religious education, and one that works in the social concerns, which she takes care of the Hope House, which is for charity, food pantry and things of that nature, and the homebound and on all that. And so that's what they help out here. So it depends on the charism of their community or congregation.
And sisters live in a convent. Nuns live in a monastery. It's just a nomenclature for their residence. And the Sisters of Christian Charity who are here also used to run Catholic hospital in my diocese.
Right, they did.
Williamsburg Hospital. The administrator was a sister. Almost every floor had a sister. They were nurses and administrators. Now they merged with Geisinger, so it's not as populated with sisters as before.
It's very interesting to note, too. Before a lot of women were in colleges and all that, the women religious were the most educated population among women. They had doctorates. They had masters. Some of them even went on to Columbia University or various places to get a degree in English literature or languages or what have you. So they were one of the most educated population. That's why they ran corporations like hospitals or colleges and institutions of that nature, orphanages. The Catholic Church that we in the United States that we know today were heavily built because of the women religious. And I know I went to Catholic school and was very blessed to have a religious sister in most of the grades that I went through. And all of them were still alive at my first Mass, and they were all there, and they were like,
I feel like to get wheeled in, though.
No, not at mine, no. But they were beaming like they were our mothers, because basically they were. If you went to a Catholic school, the sister, you were there for 8 hours. They were your mother there, besides your teacher. So I have tremendous respect for the women.
Yes, and I too remember we had a sister in every single grade, and it does have an impact upon you, not only for the girls to think about religious life, but even among the boys, having not just that female presence, but that she also had the consecrated life.
In a parish that has women religious, you have of course, the priest, which brings a certain spirituality, and the women religious bring a certain spirituality, which is a very complementary. So it's very nice to have both, if a parish is blessed to have them, to have both. Now here in Flemington, we have Dominican sisters, we have the Carmelite sisters, we have the Little Sisters of the Poor, which run nursing homes for the poor and elderly, and then we have the Sisters of Christian Charity. So in our community, our little town, we have 4 religious communities of sisters. So certainly, indeed, we're kind of blessed in that to have them. The Carmelites are the cloistered part of there. So we have
they're
we
the
have
nuns.
nuns and we have sisters too. So, all right, Father Trujillo, another question for you. Dear Father Trujillo, thank you for all that you do for the church, and I appreciate your humor and your wonderful comments that you share on TV. My question is this: how is the church handling funerals at this time? Concerned, Rafaela.
Well, Rafaela, unfortunately, because of the virus and the quarantine we're under and stay-at-home rules that we got, first of all, our bishops and the governors and our civil authorities want to cut down on the possibility of contagion. So we're limited to 10 or less. And in most states now, because of the high point now of the virus, you're not able to have a funeral mass. You're maybe not able to go to the cemetery. Some places do it. It's a case by case by each diocese and even sometimes by parish. So when a Catholic passes away, like what's happening in Italy, there are no funerals going on. They're burying the bodies as soon as they can because of the fact that they need to do this quickly. So there'll be a memorial mass offered at a later time, which we do even like if somebody dies in another country and it's difficult to transport. In fact, it's very expensive to transport a casket with the whole body in there. So what many times happens is somebody dies outside the country, they have to be cremated, and then later on when the cremains come to the United States, there'll be a memorial mass. So the funeral mass that we typically have is on hold right now. A dear friend of ours, his mother passed away, a priest friend of ours, and unfortunately they weren't able to have a funeral mass and wasn't even able to get to the cemetery. But normally speaking, a Catholic should want to have like a wake the night before, which can be a rosary or an evening prayer service, and then with a viewing, and then the day of the funeral, have a funeral mass, and then proceed to the cemetery. One thing, Father Ken, I saw was very distressing. After 30 some years of priesthood, I noticed fewer and fewer Catholics, this was before the virus, did not want a funeral mass. They didn't want a wake. They said, Father, just come to the cemetery, say a few prayers. And I said, well, why? Your family is devout. Well, our adult children don't go to mass anymore. Well, we have non-Catholic friends. And I would say, if you were of the Jewish faith, your friends, if they were Catholic, Protestant, or even Muslim, would go to the synagogue out of respect for you. So why is it when Catholics, why are we squeamish? So when this virus is over with, I hope they're going to see a resurgence of wakes and funerals, the full 9 yards, because remember, the funeral is primarily for the deceased person themselves. We're praying for their soul. Secondly, for the comfort of the mourners, the survivors.
Yeah, and when I was pastor of an Italian parish in Raritan, New Jersey, of course they didn't embalm in Italy, and so maybe their brother and sister died in Italy, and they couldn't get there for the funeral. So what we did was we did a memorial mass in the parish, and I wore black vestments, and we would put the Easter candle out, and we would have a picture of the deceased loved one, and we would have appropriate music, funeral music, for that liturgy, and it was very comforting for the family because they wanted to be at the funeral, but of course they couldn't fly or they couldn't get a flight over quick enough. So this was very, very consoling for them. Plus, the added benefit of praying for the repose of their soul, of their loved one that had passed away. So never underestimate the power of the prayer for the repose of the soul of that one. And one of the 7 spiritual works, 7 corporal works is to bury the dead. One of the 7 spiritual works is to pray for the dead. And that's one of our duties as Catholics. And so the chief way we could pray for the dead is having a mass said, and certainly having their funeral mass said, and then now in this craziness of this quarantine, later on, if someone died and couldn't have a funeral mass, have a memorial mass for there. And that could be equally as nice to be done and respectful.
Now, when I was at Hershey, it was a good portion was Italian. And they also had the custom that if the person died and was being buried in Italy, they wanted a mass in the United States at the same time.
That might be a little difficult.
Simultaneous.
With the 6 hour difference.
Yeah,
right?
that got a little
Yeah.
it wasn't always convenient, but I remember some old Italian lady goes, "Oh, Father, we have to have a mass." And I said,
So you said
10 o'clock at night.
So you probably said, well, liturgical time would be
Yes. I said, we can use it in our time zone, but and of course, know too that if Catholics married to a non-Catholic, that non-Catholic can be buried, have a funeral at the Catholic Church. I know before that was not, we kept it separate, but because of the special relationship of husband and wife, the Church allows that now, so that particularly a lot of times you have a Catholic married a spouse and their spouse never came all the way into the church, but still came to Mass every week, made sure the children were raised in the faith, and so they want to be buried with a Catholic funeral, even though they maybe didn't come all the way into full communion.
Right. Well, I think we have time for one more question, but I think we should hold the number 7 because that could be a long one. So let's do the last one from little Joey.
Okay, little Joey asks, "My dad said some Catholics receive communion as babies. Why do I have to wait?"
Very good question, Joey. All right, the ones that are babies are probably belong to the Orthodox Church, okay, and they do the sacraments of what they call Christian initiation, which would be baptism, Eucharist, and confirmation all at once.
And in the Eastern tradition too, they receive communion with leavened bread that's been consecrated, and it's been dipped into this precious blood. And so we have a number of friends of ours. In fact, one of our classmates is the Arch-Eparch for the Ruthenians in Pittsburgh. And so I was able to witness babies' baptism, chrismation, and they received Holy Communion. It was like a little drop from the special spoon. But as you said, later on they had a formal ceremony like
right.
akin to what we do with our kids for First Holy Communion. So they could prepare, be more conscious of what's happening.
So, Joey, I don't know what age you are, but it would be 7, the earliest in the Latin Rite Church. All right. Well, we come to the conclusion of another episode of Web of Faith 2.1.5. And remember, tomorrow's episode is going to be a special edition to prepare ourselves for Easter. So we're going to talk about the Triduum, and we'll wait to, if you don't know what that means, we'll explain that to you tomorrow, and some Easter customs that we grew up with, and maybe some customs that we didn't grow up with, but are certainly beautifully celebrated in different ethnic families. Before we conclude, just remind you, please keep on sending your contributions into your parish. Again, you can do it here Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., or drop it off at the church, or put it in the post. Or you can sign up electronically to give, and that would secure a regular donation coming in weekly. You can also do it by PayPal now. And then finally, you can even text your donation in. However you do it, we need to keep our parishes going and thriving and strong as we come out of this virus altogether. So Father Trujillo and I are going to give you our Pcc Blessing on this beautiful afternoon as we are in Holy Week.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
And may God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
God bless you. Until we see you again, may our Lord be your source of hope and consolation, especially during this time, and Our Lady intercede for you.
Web of Faith 2.1.5. Please join us again as Father John Trujillo and Father Kenneth Pergenti answer more of your questions on Catholicism. Until then, God bless you and God love you.